We're going to have an honest talk about why productivity is so hard. And this is important because successful productivity is a secret power that we have the ability to master. So, in this episode, we're going to be talking about the obstacles that keep us from being productive and how to avoid them. So that way we can discover a productive and powerful version of ourselves. So, let's do it. Welcome to the Dream Lifestyle Podcast, where the focus and mission is to help you become the best version of yourself so you can live your dream lifestyle. My name is Trevon Gross Jr., and I'm extremely thankful to have you here today because you matter, your dream matters, it is possible, and I believe in you. In today's episode, we're talking about why productivity is hard. Okay, this is going to be an honest talk. We're family, so we're going to have a family meeting about why productivity is so hard. And this is going to be really valuable to you because we're really going to get clear on the obstacles that keep us from being productive, as well as ways to practically avoid them. Because really, when you think about being productive, it's kind of a well-kept secret. It's one of those concepts that is talked about a lot and really spoken about in a way of, okay, it's very important. Yes, we need to get productive. However, what's often overlooked is the practicality and the actual application of the concept of productivity. And so we're really going to get clear on, again, the obstacles that keep us from being productive, as well as real practical ways to avoid them. Okay. Now, before we really get started with this episode, do me a favor. Let me know, how did you grow this week? In what way did you get better? Okay. If you're watching me on YouTube, leave a comment. If you are listening to me on a podcast platform, reach out to me via email, social media, whatever it is. Go on Instagram, Craft Your Dream Inc., and let me know, how did you grow this week? How did you move the needle forward? How are you simply crafting your dream? I'd love to hear from you, because the more engagement, the more people get to also realize their dreams are possible as well. Okay, I appreciate that. Now, let's jump right into why productivity is so hard. Okay, we're going to get real. It's the honest talk again. We're going to get honest. And the number one reason why productivity is so hard, especially today, is there are a lot of distractions. There are so many distractions that keep us from being productive. And a lot of that mainly has to do with media. A lot of that has to do with our phones. A lot of that has to do with, I'd even go as far to say, people. Because people can be distractions because we want to keep up socially or whatever the case may be. And there's a lot of reasons for those distractions, right, in terms of why we indulge in those distractions. But when you think about being productive also speaks to a level of focus. And if you have multiple distractions around you, and us as human beings in the social media age, in this information age, we have so many forces and algorithms and people and brands and businesses that are basically fighting and paying a lot of money to get our attention. And they do a very good job at it, I might even add. So when you think about just your day-to-day life, when you think about, when you find yourself on TikTok longer than you expect to be, when you find yourself on Instagram scrolling way longer than you expected to be, right? You expect it to only give yourself, let's say, a 5-minute break of social media, which then turned into an hour of you just scrolling and looking at the same stuff. And I'm speaking from personal experience. Like, this is stuff that I've experienced myself, where, you're on the phone thinking, okay, this is just going to be real quick, just checking something. Next thing you know, an entire 2 hours has passed you by just because you saw a cool clip or whatever the case may be, right? But there are a lot of distractions. And if we continue to fall into those distractions, we make it very difficult for us to tap into the power of productivity in our own lives. And so one of the practical pieces of advice with this is honestly using the tools that are at our disposal to keep us away from the distractions. Okay, what are the tools? Tools such as your do not disturb function on your phone. Okay, that's something that at one point I never used do not disturb, just because I didn't see the need, because I was like, I'm getting everything done. But as I continue to build everything that I'm building and just the person that I'm becoming, and just as I start to see more and more distractions, I personally have learned, okay, I need to start using the do not disturb function, because there are real activities and things that I need to get done, and I only have a certain amount of time to complete them. And I need to make sure that I'm putting myself in an environment to where I can focus. Because again, productivity is a level of focus. I need to put myself in a space where I can completely focus on the task at hand. And so in that, one of the practical ways, and again, I want to be very practical with this, one of the practical ways for me, and hopefully this applies to you, is really using tools that are at your disposal, such as do not disturb, such as using your calendar in your phone, or, buying a planner, whatever you have to do. But essentially going to find tools that eliminate those distractions, even utilizing screen time for all my iPhone users, Android users. I don't know what you have, but hopefully there's a way in which you can control your application usage and stuff like that on your phone. But you want to simply and practically just use tools that are in your reach, so that way you can eliminate the distractions that are keeping you from being productive. Okay. And this is super, super important, because how many times do you find yourself in the middle of the day feeling like you're getting a whole bunch of stuff done, but then when you lay down at night, you're like, I actually didn't do much at all. Right? Or if you're at work, right, you spend your entire 6, 7, 8 hour day, but then when you think back on the day, you're like, I might have really only worked like 2 hours of that entire day. Right? And you're just like, well, where did the rest of my time go? Right. But that is a result of falling into distraction. And again, distraction does not need to just be media. Distraction can be people. It can be conversations. You could find yourself chatting it up with a friend, a quick phone conversation that should be 5 minutes turns into an entire hour-long in-depth conversation. And I'm not saying that, that's never going to happen, or you should never allow that to happen. But practically, that's just why I say the easiest way and most practical and most effective way to avoid that is by using tools such as do not disturb, and even having conversations with your friends, if it is people, or people that may reach out to you saying, hey, during these hours, during this time, or I'm in the middle of this, just making it very clear. Again, you have the power to control your environment in which you work, but that's going to require you to put the right tools in place, set the right systems up, so that way you can focus in on your work and be productive. Okay, so the number one thing that holds you back from being productive, especially today, is distractions. And so you do that by utilizing tools. Hey, you're listening to this episode because you are looking to take action for your dream. You're trying to find your how to your biggest goals. What I'm encouraging you to do right now is go to dreamsociety.info. That is where you can register to be a part of the Dream Society, which is Craft Your Dreams accountability group that meets Monday mornings to set targets, take action, and win. So if that's you, if you're somebody that takes your personal development, you take your growth seriously, this is something you need to be a part of. Go to dreamsociety.info right now. Let's get back to the episode. Now, the second thing that is an obstacle to us being productive, okay, the second thing that really makes being productive hard is there's not many examples of productivity. Okay, there's not many examples. You don't see as many examples of people really being productive. And a lot of that has to do with, just in today, a lot of us are home. A lot of us are working from home. We're working remote, or even if we are working in an office setting or anywhere, we're usually by ourselves, right? We're not having as much human interaction as we once did. And so because of that, you're kind of just isolated, whether it's you're by your own doing or just the way in which the world works now, because everything's pretty much virtual. But because you're not seeing other people being productive, there's less motivation for yourself to be productive, right? Because again, when you're in a group of people, right, when you find yourself in a community of people that are being productive, then you're going to actually find yourself being productive, right? It's the same law that I'm certain all of you have heard, where you're the average of your 5 friends. Well, I can tell you, if you're around 5 people that are super productive, guess what you'll become? The 6th person that's productive. But if you don't have interaction with people, if you aren't seeing many examples of real productivity, not just people talking about how productivity is good, but when you really put yourself, again, you control your environment. When you put yourself in situations where you are around productivity, whatever that may look like for you, you're going to find yourself meeting that standard. You're going to find yourself raising that bar and simply becoming productive because you're around it all the time because there's not many examples. A lot of people talk about, the work that they do, but you're not actually seeing it in real time. There are so many examples of people in sports, in music, in business, in many different industries where we hear about, man, they're like the hardest worker ever, right? Like Kevin Hart, I think, is a great example of this. We hear all the time about how great of a worker Kevin Hart is, right? Busy schedule, he works out, he does this, he does that, right? We have all these examples. He's using him as an example. We only hear about it through interviews. We only hear about it through other people that have interacted with him, but none of us are actually seeing it, right? Which, again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's not something he needs to publicize. But because there is a lack of a true example of the application and the practicality of being productive, there's no real motivation to become that. So you need to make sure that as you are in position where there are a lot of distractions and there's not many examples of productivity, that you are basically seeking those opportunities to really see what productivity actually looks like so you can become that. And so the way in which you avoid this obstacle, the way in which you avoid the obstacle of there not being many examples of productivity, is that you find and connect with a success model. Yeah, you find and connect with a success model. Now, I'll start with what a success model is. A success model is basically a person that is ahead of you, someone that is doing what you want to do, someone that is who you want to be, okay? And you connect to them. You connect to them in some way, shape, or form, whether it be if you have the ability to have consistent conversations, whether they can be a mentor to you, great. Maybe if you aren't able to necessarily get on their calendar, buy their book, enroll in their course, join their community, whatever it is, but you want to be able to find a success model, the success model being somebody that has basically walked in your shoes already, someone that is 10 steps ahead of you. You identify that success model, but then on the other side of it, you connect with that success model. So that way you are basically putting yourself in an environment where you are able to see what real productivity looks like, where you're able to really get into the nuts and bolts of how the work gets done, as opposed to just being told a lot of work is getting done. Okay, but it's very important that as you navigate, there not being many examples of productivity in your lane. And that's also a very important point too. You want to find an example of productivity that is in line with whatever your goal or dream is. You want to find a success model. Find them, identify them, make sure that they're in line with who you are, what you believe in, what you're all about, your goals, but then also connect to them in some way. Okay, so what does this look like in real life? Let's say you're somebody that wants to lose weight. A success model would be going out and finding someone that has lost weight in the same way that you're trying to lose weight, someone that has been in your shoes, right where you are today. That's where somebody used to be. You identify that person, whether it be a trainer, a person, whatever the case may be, and then you reach out to them. If they're a trainer, right, let's say, if there's a trainer that has been where you are and they offer some level of fitness classes, fitness courses, whatever the case may be, you buy the course, you work with them, so that way they are basically accelerating you around obstacles that you didn't even know would exist because they're helping you and you're actually able to see what they did. You're actually getting a real life example of productivity because you're creating your environment to avoid the obstacle of there not being examples of productivity. And that's what you're able to do. Okay, so I'm encouraging you, if you're somebody that, okay, you know that being productive is important, but you're like, I don't really have many examples of what that looks like. I'm encouraging you to find a success model and connect with that success model. Okay, so that is number two, the number two thing that is an obstacle towards you being productive. Now, the third and final thing that keeps you from being productive is that everyone's productivity looks different. And this is somewhat connected to what I just said about, there's not many examples. Everyone's productivity is different. Everyone works differently. Okay, productivity is a concept, and that's why the concept of productivity is great, but not enough people really talk about the nitty-gritty of productivity. And the truth of it is, you work a certain way. The way that you work is different from the way that I work. And here's a perfect example. It's very simple, but for some people, they like to work in complete silence. That is when they are working at their absolute best, absolute silence. I personally don't do that, but I know that there are people out there that thrive in their work and they're the most productive when there is silence in the room. They can sit at a desk and just get work done for however long, right? But there's other people, and I'm a part of this group, who want a little bit of noise, want a little bit of music, want a little bit of TV playing in the background, whatever it is, but they want some background noise while they work. And for them, that leads to them being the most productive, right? But that's a very simple difference between the two, but it leads to different levels of productivity. Because if me, as the person that needs background noise, me as the person that needs a little bit of action and excitement while I'm working, aside from the work, if I put myself in an environment where it is dead silent, I will go mad, because I know that I work best when I have a little bit of music playing in the background, or a podcast playing in the background, or just some form of just something else in the background aside from the work, because I know that's how I work. But a lot of times people don't take the time to really understand how they work. They just basically try to work the same way they're either just told to work, or they're just based it off of how other people work, which there's a level of that which is good. But it also does require you to really get clear about how you work. All right. And so the way in which you avoid this, the way in which you avoid, basically falling into the trap of trying to be productive by somebody else's definition, is you get clear on what does excellence look like for you in every area of your life. Okay, so take the time to define, okay, this is what excellence looks like to me. This is how I work. This is how I produce the best result in every area of my life. And then you assess, what environment do I need to put myself in so that way I can produce that result? Okay, you're basically reverse engineering your productivity by looking at, okay, these are the different areas of my life. Look, here's my finances, here's my physical health, here's my career, here's my relationships, and here's the outcome. Here's the perfect outcome, the perfect excellent outcome for each of these areas. And then you assess, what are the environments, what needs to happen, what inputs need to be put in so that way I get these outputs. And then you basically operate based on that finding for yourself. Okay. And another thing I'll even add to this, just using my life as an example for you, and I hope this helps. For me, when I work, when I'm really in the nitty and gritty of being productive, I not only need music playing, I'm only working like about 2 hours at a time. Because I know me. I know that in order for me to be the most productive, I'm going to lock in for a strong 2 hours, but then I'm going to step away from it. I just know, and I'm honest with myself about the fact, I'm not working 5 hours straight. Just practically, because if I were to try to do that, I would likely end up spending 4 of those hours just on my phone, just because for me, it doesn't work. Like I've tried it. It just doesn't work. So rather than me try to be something I'm not, rather than me try to work in a way that just doesn't work for me, I'm just going to take advantage of who God's made me to be. And so for that, I've time blocked my entire day to where 2 hours at a time, this is what I'm working on. And I've found that I am extremely productive. And all the results that come with being productive, I've been able to see as a result of me just being honest with myself about, hey, this is how I work, but also really embracing that. And I did that by really defining what excellence looks like to me and really walking in that. So that way I can get the results that I want. Okay. And a great analogy that I talk about all the time with people is that we're all different types of cars. We're all different types of cars. You have some people that are trucks. You have some people that are sedans. You have some people that are sports cars. You have some people that are, there are different types of cars, different types of vehicles. And it's very important that we get clear on what type of vehicle you are, particularly when you think about how you work. And in that, right, because we're all a different type of car, that means that we all drive differently. You can't be a truck and then hit the road driving as though you're in a Ferrari. You can't be a Ferrari or a BMW or a Lamborghini driving as if you're in a truck, right? So the reason why it's so important that you really define what excellence is and really get a clear understanding of just who you are and how you work and what excellence looks like to you in these different areas is you're basically just allowing yourself the space to say, this is the type of car that I am, and this is how I'm going to drive. And when I drive the way that God has created me to drive, when I pick up my 5 smooth stones from the training that God has given me, when I just simply walk in who God has created me to be, I will see doors open that I would have never imagined as a result of basically accepting who I am. Because that's basically how you avoid, okay, that's how you avoid trying to fall into the trap of trying to be productive like everybody else. And so those are the three obstacles. Number one is there are a lot of distractions. Number two, there's not many examples of productivity around you. Number three, everyone's productivity is different. And the way in which you avoid these three things, number one, you use tools that are at your disposal. Number two, you identify and connect with a success model. And then number three, you define what excellence means to you and you embrace it. All right. So I hope that this episode was helpful to you. If it did, please be sure to let me know in the comments. Leave me a review if you're listening to me on a podcast platform. Again, I really appreciate you guys for checking out another episode of the Dream Lifestyle Podcast. I'll see you guys next week. Always remember, your dream is possible as long as you are willing to work for it.